Last summer, I moved into my grandmother's old farmhouse after losing my apartment. I thought the quiet would help me find my creative spark again. I didn't know much about old houses, but I figured I could handle it. On my first day, I went into the attic. It was cramped, filled with dust and boxes. I hoped to find something inspiring. I stumbled upon a few old paintings, but in the corner, I noticed strange drawings. They looked like childlike sketches, but the figures felt wrong. Some were twisted and decayed. A chill ran through me as I glanced at them. I wanted to toss them as my grandmother's odd art, but I found them compelling. A few days later, I woke up early and went back to those drawings. They seemed different. It was an unsettling glow that made my heart race. I told myself it was just my imagination. Maybe I had looked too long. But what if they had changed? I spent hours examining the art. Some nights, I couldn't tell if I was awake or dreaming. As the days went by, shadows in the attic grew deeper. Creaks echoed from the darkened corners of the house. I swore I heard whispers pulling at the edges of my hearing. "Mark," they seemed to say. I would turn around, but no one was there. My heart raced each time. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was just anxious or stressed from being in this house again. One evening, I noticed the attic door had opened by itself. An uneasy feeling tugged at me. I hesitated, but my legs felt heavy. Finally, I stepped inside. The drawings seemed to watch me. I felt cold, as if someone was there. I wanted to look away, but something drew me closer. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement. Shadows flickered, almost urging me to keep looking. I took a step back, unsure of my instincts. One drawing felt different. It didn't seem like my grandmother's. There was something primal about it. Suddenly, my breath caught in my throat. One figure appeared to be pointing at me. It felt absurd, but I couldn't shake that feeling. What could it want? A louder whisper filled the air, "Look closer." My heart raced. The attic door slammed shut behind me. Panic tightened my chest. I had to get out. But something pulled me toward those drawings. I felt trapped. I glanced around, but the shadows danced, obscuring the light. The figures felt alive now. As I stood there, I couldn't deny it. I was terrified. What was happening? I forced myself to turn away, but a sense of dread washed over me. Maybe I shouldn't have come back up here. What if those drawings were not just art? I felt drawn in, and something inside me whispered to stay. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to escape, but I was rooted in place, unable to look away from their gaze. The air in the attic grew thick, stifling my breath. The drawings loomed larger than life, consuming the space around me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more in those twisted images. I forced myself to look away from the one figure that pointed at me. As I turned, I felt an intense pressure in my chest, like a hand gripping my heart. The whispers returned, louder this time. "Stay," they beckoned. My pulse quickened. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Instead, I focused on the shadows flickering across the walls. They seemed to writhe, and in that moment, I was not just scared, I was entranced. The figure that pointed at me captivated my gaze again. It seemed to twist and turn as if trying to break free from the paper. I reached out to touch the drawing, drawn in by an impulse I couldn't explain. The moment my fingers brushed the edge, a jolt of energy surged through me, pulling me into a whirlwind of darkness. Everything around me melted away. I felt as if I were being pulled into a different space, a different time. I gasped and pulled my hand back, and just like that, the vision vanished. I staggered backward, bumping into a box. The attic was just the attic again, but something had changed inside me. Then a sound echoed, a creaking on the old floorboards behind me. I whipped around, heart pounding. My heart dropped as I saw a fleeting shadow dart into the corner. It was quick, but my eyes recognized that it was no trick of the light. Someone was in the attic with me. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. My skin prickled as silence followed. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart and the rusty, rhythmic creaks of the house settling. I edged toward the stairs, the desire to flee growing stronger. But before I could move, the pointed figure in the drawing caught my eye. It was as if it beckoned me back. I lifted one foot, ready to take a step, but an overwhelming urge to stay held me in place. Then, the attic door cracked open slightly, just enough to let a sliver of moonlight pour in. My heart raced again. What was out there? A rush of cold air sent shivers down my spine. I stood frozen, holding my breath. Then everything went dark. The moonlight disappeared, and I was left in an oppressive blackness. The whispers took on a new tone, more urgent now. "Come, follow," they urged. It felt like something was wrapping around me, pulling me toward the drawings. I had to know more. Something was waiting for me. I took a deep breath. I didn't know if I was being drawn to something terrifying or if I was chasing the answers I desperately needed. One thing was clear: whatever waited in that attic wouldn't let me go easily. I stood in the darkness, heart racing, struggling to make sense of my surroundings. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a sinister melody. "Come follow," echoed in my mind. I felt the pull again, a mix of fear and curiosity binding me to that spot. I took a hesitant step toward the drawings. My hands trembled as I reached for the image of the figure that had so captivated me. The air seemed to shimmer as my fingers grazed the parchment. A rush of cold washed over me, and for a second, I thought I could see faint outlines in the darkness beyond the drawings, like shadows trying to break free. Then a scraping noise caught my attention, louder this time. My breath quickened. "Who's there?" I called into the void. My voice felt small, swallowed by the overwhelming silence. I felt ridiculous, standing alone in that attic, yet something deep inside urged me to stay. In the corner of my eye, a movement. I spun around just as a shape emerged from the darkness, almost blending into the shadows. It was small but unmistakable. A child? My heart lurched. I took a cautious step back, searching for an escape. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking. The figure stood still, just out of reach of the moonlight that flickered in and out behind the attic door. My mind raced. Was this a ghost? Or had the darkness finally driven me mad? The child took a step closer and whispered something. "It's your fault." The words were like ice water down my spine. I didn't understand what it meant, but the accusation hung thick in the air. "Wait. What do you mean?" I stammered. I wanted to know, to grasp whatever truth lay behind the shadows. Instead, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. The child's face was shrouded in darkness, features obscured, but I could sense the weight of sorrow radiating from them. A sudden flicker of light illuminated the attic. The moon broke free of the clouds, casting an eerie glow over the drawings. In that light, I saw something I hadn't noticed before: a barely visible inscription at the bottom of the drawing depicting the figure. The words were in a language I couldn't understand, but they felt familiar. Frustration built inside me. "What are you trying to tell me?" I yelled into the emptiness. But instead of an answer, the whispers transformed into chaotic babbling, a jumble of sounds that clawed at my mind. The child stepped back, fading into the darkness. "You have to choose," they said. "You can't escape." Before I could process the words, the air around me shifted again. The pressure in my chest returned, squeezing like an unseen hand. It felt like the whole attic was trembling, alive and demanding. The drawings pulsed softly, almost as if they were breathing. Fear roared inside me. I felt trapped between curiosity and dread. And then, just as suddenly as the flickering light came, it went out, plunging me back into the oppressive blackness. A voice from behind me whispered, "Remember." I spun around, but there was no one there. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to know what this meant before it consumed me completely. That one word echoed in my mind as I braced myself to face whatever was lurking in the shadows. But I was running out of time. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stand still in the thick darkness. The whispers had settled into a dull hum, and I tried to focus on the feeling creeping down my spine. "You have to choose." The child's words rang in my ears, a constant reminder that something was coming. I strained to see, scanning the edges of the attic with all my might. I remembered the faint luminosity from before, the way the light had unveiled hidden truths in the drawings. Maybe if I can make out that inscription, I can understand, I thought. With shaky hands, I fumbled for my phone. The small screen glowed in the surrounding blackness, revealing just enough light for me to head back to where the drawings were. My heart pounded in my chest as I took careful steps, half expecting the child to appear again or the whispers to start up once more. Finally, I reached the drawings. I flicked the phone's flashlight on, illuminating the parchment. The intricate lines of the figure danced under the beam, and I squinted to make out the inscription. I traced the letters with my finger. They felt oddly familiar, yet my brain couldn't latch onto their meaning. It read, "In shadows you shall find the memories lost." I furrowed my brow, contemplating the phrase. What memories? And whose memories? A shiver rolled through me as I thought of the child's accusing voice. Was it possible they were tied to these memories? Just then, a sharp clang echoed from behind me. I jerked around, my heart racing. Is someone there? I called out, but my voice came out steadier than I felt. The attic, once a sanctuary of old clutter, turned into a cage of dread, echoing with every sound. I turned back to the drawing, my fingers smoothing over the ink. How can I find them? I whispered. And then, like a switch flipping, the air around me thickened. From the deepest corner of the attic, another figure emerged. A shadow darker than the darkness itself. It twisted and shifted, like smoke caught in a breeze. I couldn't see its face, but I felt its weight pushing down on me. This wasn't the child. This presence felt far more menacing. Leave, it rasped, its voice a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate the walls. Panic surged through me. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but my curiosity anchored me in place. What do you want? I demanded, though my voice was far less fierce than I intended. The figure inched closer, melding with the shadows, its form blurring. You've opened something you cannot close, it warned. The choice is not yours to make. Suddenly, the walls trembled, and a painful crack rang out as one of the rafters shifted above me. My heart sank. I had to act fast. The attic was collapsing under the weight of whatever had been unleashed. Just as I turned to run, I spotted the child's face, peeking from the far edge of the room. The child raised a hand, eyes wide and pleading. You need to remember. They cried, desperation etched into their features. I hesitated, torn between two horrors, the oppressive weight of the shadow and the child's plea. And then everything went dark, plunging me into an abyss where nothing seemed real and everything felt possible. I didn't know it yet, but that was only the beginning. I stumbled into the darkness, the edges of reality slipping away. It felt like falling through a thick fog. I blinked rapidly, trying to fight against the confusion, but the shadows only deepened around me. Just as uncertainty began to settle in, a soft light flickered to life. I was back in the attic. Only, it looked different now. The clutter was still there, but everything seemed sharper, as if the old things had come alive. The drawings were vibrant, glowing faintly under the remnants of dust that danced lazily in the air. The same inscription was written on the parchment, but now it pulsed with an odd rhythm, whispering truths just out of reach. What does it mean? I whispered, brushing my fingers over the lettering. As I did, the room shifted, the air growing heavy with stories longing to be told. The child's face appeared again, standing beside me with an expression filled with urgency. You have to find them, they said, voice echoing yet soft. The memories are trapped in the light. What memories? I asked, frustration bubbling. Who are you? But the child only shook their head, eyes sharp as a knife. You'll understand. Just look closer. I leaned in, studying the drawings more intently. Shapes began to emerge from the scribbles. I saw scenes of laughter, of love, and of a family I barely recognized. I felt an ache deep in my chest. These were moments lost, perhaps even mine. Yet, they felt tangled with something darker, something that wanted to claw its way out. I need to remember, I murmured, half to myself. Suddenly, the shadow shifted, creeping closer, thickening the air. It roared, a sound like the grinding of ancient gears. No! It bellowed. You cannot. The attic walls trembled again, but this time, the foundation felt more stable. Then, without warning, a blinding flash erupted from the drawings. I shielded my eyes, panic clawing at my throat. When I looked back, everything was changed. The shadow now loomed over the drawings, its form seeming to warp and twist. I felt a rush of fear as the child gasped, their expression shifting from hope to dread. "It's coming for you!" they shouted. In that moment, realization struck me like lightning. The memories were tied to whatever this thing was. I had to confront the shadow to uncover the truth. "Stay back!" I yelled, feeling a surge of defiance. I aimed my phone's flashlight directly at the figure, hoping the light would break through the darkness. For a heartbeat, it hesitated, reeling as the beam hit its core. The figure roared louder, the attic shaking violently, like an angry beast. I had awakened something that wanted to remain hidden. Then everything exploded in blinding light. As I braced myself against the radiant burst, I heard one last whisper, soft yet echoing. "Remember, your choice awaits." Then, nothing. I blinked awake, the sudden shift from light to darkness disorienting. I lay on the cold wooden floor of the attic, heart racing. The air buzzed around me. Had it all been a dream? I could still feel the remnants of fear wrapping around me, a thick curtain I couldn't shake off. Slowly, I pushed myself up, scanning the room. The light was gone, but traces of what had just happened lingered in my mind: the child, the shadow, the glowing drawings. I felt a pull toward the small pile of parchment in the corner. The contours of the attic seemed more familiar yet somehow warped. I approached the drawings, nerves tingling. The parchment lay still, untouched. Cautious, I knelt down, trembling fingers brushing against the edges. Images seemed dormant, waiting for me to stir them awake. "Remember," the whisper had insisted. But remember what? Then I froze. Hidden beneath the parchment was another piece of paper. It was folded neatly, as if it had been recently placed there. I hesitated, fear bubbling up again. But curiosity was stronger. I opened it slowly, revealing more intricate drawings that depicted a path through a forest that didn't look like any I had seen before. A chill ran down my spine as I examined the sketches. There were trees with thick, twisted trunks and roots that appeared to writhe. In the center was a small clearing, marked with a subtle but familiar symbol, the same one from the parchment. The realization struck me hard: this wasn't just art. It was a map. Where does it lead? I murmured, my heart pounding in rhythm with my thoughts. Suddenly, I became aware of a faint whisper. Not from the drawings, but from somewhere deeper, almost like a call echoing from the forest outside. My breath caught. It was the same inviting tone I heard when the child appeared, yet tinged with an edge of sorrow. I stood abruptly, my thoughts racing. Should I follow the map? Could it lead me to the truth? Was there a piece of my past waiting for me? The childless face flashed in my mind. You have to find them. The urgency echoed again, pushing me toward the door. Turning, I sprinted down the attic stairs, determined to follow the path the map laid out. But as I reached the narrow stairs, I stopped, struck by foreboding. The attic walls, once a refuge, now felt like they were closing in. A shadow loomed in the corner of my vision, shifting and swirling. I could feel it watching me. Not again, I whispered, panic creeping back. I raced out of the attic, into the hall, but the weight of the shadow lingered. That when I saw it, the back door was ajar. An old creak broke the silence as I approached, the chill of the evening air spilling into the house. I hesitated, unsure if I should flee into the unknown or close the door and hide. In the distance, a soft rustle caught my attention. Someone or something was out there, waiting for me. I needed to decide quickly. I stepped outside, the night enveloping me, the world suddenly vast and unknowable. The path to the forest beckoned, but so did the shadows lurking in the corners of my mind. And then I heard the whisper again, clearer this time, a warning laced with urgency: your choice awaits. The forest loomed ahead, dark and inviting, full of secrets I was determined to uncover. The moment my foot hit the cool earth, a wave of uncertainty washed over me. The breeze rustled the leaves, making them whisper secrets I couldn't understand. Stepping away from the door, I focused on the path ahead. The map felt like a lifeline, drawing me toward the unknown. As I moved closer to the tree line, the sounds of the night eclipsed any thoughts I had. Crickets chirped, and the distant hoot of an owl echoed through the shadows. I could almost feel the forest breathing around me, alive and watching. Each step sank into the carpet of fallen leaves, muffling my presence. I unfolded the map again, studying the route. Anxiety twisted in my stomach. Was I ready for this? Each drawing felt like an invitation, but the weight of the unknown pressed heavily on my chest. I remembered the child's face, their urgency urging me forward. Drifting deeper into the forest, the trees grew taller and wilder. Their gnarled branches intertwined, weaving a tapestry of darkness above me. Suddenly, I noticed an eerie glow in the distance, slicing through the darkness like a beacon. My heart skipped a beat. I moved toward it, compelled, each step faster than the last. The air grew thick, charged with something unnameable. The closer I got, the more the glow took shape, revealing intricate symbols etched into the trunks of the surrounding trees. They pulsed softly, illuminated by an inner light as if the forest held a secret I was on the verge of discovering. Suddenly, I halted in my tracks. A figure stood a few feet away, half hidden in the shadows. My breath caught in my throat. It looked like the child from my visions, but this one was older, eyes bright and knowing. "What are you?" I whispered, feeling foolish yet compelled. The figure tilted its head, like it was trying to communicate without words. I could feel the weight of its gaze, intense but not threatening. "You found the map," it said, voice soft but firm. "Now you've begun an adventure." "Who are you?" I demanded, the fear pressing like a fist in my chest. "What do you want from me?" The child stepped closer. "It's not what we want. It's what you seek. The answers are here, deep within the grove." I felt drawn to follow, yet a part of me wanted to flee. The glow behind the child flickered, and for a moment, the world shifted. The forest became more alive, more frantic, as if it was responding to the tension that hung in the air. "Stay," the child urged, their voice stronger now. "You must understand before you return." Then I heard it again, the whisper, but this time it bore a weight of sorrow, of loss. "Choose wisely." My heart raced as panic bubbled up again. Every instinct screamed for me to turn back, to escape the shadows and uncertainty. But a strange resolve began to settle within me. Was this a chance to learn something vital about myself? Just as I took a step closer, there was a sudden rustling in the bushes behind me. The tension snapped like a taut string. I whirled around, breathless. Something was lurking there in the dark, waiting. What I thought would be an innocent encounter was turning into something much more sinister. I couldn't see what it was, but the chill that lingered at my back told me it was watching. The forest pulsed with fear, and I had to decide, confront the shadow or trust the child. Either way, I was caught in the grip of an unfolding mystery that promised no easy answers. The rustling behind me escalated into a series of loud cracks. My heart jumped into my throat as I spun around again. The child stood firm, seemingly unaffected by the sound. "Don't be afraid," they urged. "Focus on what you're here to find." I wanted to trust them, but the shadow that loomed closer was growing darker. Its movements were swift, fluid, like it was gliding over the ground rather than walking. Who or what was it? I felt the pull to the child, their soft voice beckoning me back to the glow, but fear clutched at my mind, forcing me to stay alert. "Please, you have to tell me what's happening," I exclaimed, glancing back at the encroaching shadow. "I need to know." "Knowledge is both a gift and a burden," the child replied, their tone steady. "You cannot run from it, but you also shouldn't face it unprepared." Before I could respond, the shadow darted into the flickering light. It stopped suddenly, and there it was, a creature with elongated limbs and hollow eyes that shimmered like obsidian marbles. It looked at me in a way that pierced through the night air, unsettling and curious all at once. "What do you want?" I asked, voice shaking despite my effort to sound strong. The creature remained silent, yet the forest around us seemed to grow louder, as if it were holding its breath. The child moved closer to me, showing no fear of the being. "Sometimes, they simply want to understand," they whispered. "Understand what?" I snapped, frustration bubbling to the surface. The uncertainty was too much to bear. Understand you. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I felt the weight of their statement, and my instincts screamed to run. But deep down, a flicker of curiosity ignited. What could this shadow teach me? Was it connected to the map, to why I was drawn here in the first place? Just then, there was a sudden, sharp crack of a branch breaking in the distance. The shadow turned sharply, its focus shifting momentarily away from me. I seized the opportunity. What do I need to do? I asked the child, urgency rising in my chest. Find the heart of the grove, they replied, eyes reflecting the glow of the symbols. Trust yourself and follow the light. Before I could ask anything more, the shadow shot back into the trees, becoming one with the darkness. I stood there, breathless, the thrill of the chase mixing with overwhelming confusion. The symbols on the trees around me glowed brighter, almost urging me to move. So I took a step forward, unsure but determined. Each symbol felt like a guide, illuminating the path ahead. Then everything went dark. The light blinked out as the forest fell silent. Panic gripped me as I fumbled to adjust to the sudden change. What just happened? I murmured, straining to see anything, but the darkness swallowed everything whole. In that moment, fear threatened to overcome me. Then, a faint hint of light flickered back into existence, drawing my gaze. It pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat in the stillness. I felt a clear compulsion to follow it. Is this the heart of the grove? I felt more questions than answers flooding my mind. I started moving, my footsteps cautious and deliberate, feeling as though something ancient was guiding me. Behind me, shadows flickered again. This time, I didn't look back. My focus was on the light. I had to figure this out. Whatever mystery lay ahead, I was about to face it head-on. Little did I know, the truths awaiting me were deeper and darker than I ever imagined. The faint light led me deeper into the woods. My heart raced as I picked my way over roots and underbrush, each step feeling both treacherous and exhilarating. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and moss, wrapping around me like a shroud. Then I noticed something strange. The light flickered and danced, almost like it was alive. It pulsed in rhythm with my breathing, drawing me closer with an inexplicable force. I pushed aside the lingering fear and focused on the glow, the warmth emanating from it coaxing me down a narrow path lined with ancient trees. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath me. I stumbled, nearly losing my balance. A low rumble echoed through the air, and I heard a voice deep and resonant, but distant. You seek the heart. I hesitated, glancing around for the source. Who is there? I called, my voice trembling. No answer came. Taking a deep breath, I pressed on. The light pulsed again, more aggressively this time. I had to keep moving. I couldn't let fear paralyze me. As I approached a clearing, the light brightened dramatically, illuminating what appeared to be a large stone altar. The markings on the stone matched those on the trees. There were intricate designs etched into its surface, swirling patterns that seemed to shift and change when I looked closely. My pulse quickened. This must be it, I whispered, stepping cautiously into the clearing, but before I could examine it further, I heard it again. The rustling in the bushes returned, faster and closer this time. My heart raced, and I turned to scan the perimeter, but the darkness cloaked the edges of the grove. I was alone, or so I thought. Don't be afraid, the child's voice echoed in my mind as I remembered them standing so bravely against the shadow. Focus. I shook off the dread and returned my attention to the altar, hoping it held answers. As I knelt beside it, the light shifted again. I saw images begin to form above the stone, ghostly figures dancing in the air. They seemed to be reenacting scenes, their movements fluid and joyful. But something wasn't right, and unease settled over me. One figure broke away from the dance and stepped towards me, its face obscured in shadow. I jolted, instinctively backing away. What do you want? I yelled, trying to mask the shaking in my voice. The figure only pointed toward the altar. The air grew colder, and suddenly, the other figures froze. A soft whisper filled the air, words I couldn't quite make out, but the tone felt urgent. I could almost feel the pressure of their message landing on my chest. That's when I noticed the ground vibrating beneath me again, more intensely this time. I felt compelled to reach for the cold stone surface, my fingers brushing against the engravings. A current of energy surged through my body, igniting every nerve ending. But as I touched the stone, the clearing filled with darkness. The shadows converged, swirling in chaotic spirals around me. Panic surged, and I struggled to stand. My mind raced with questions, and my instincts warned me to flee, but I was rooted in place, a part of the unfolding mystery. Protect the heart. The voice boomed. Find the truth before the night claims it. Then everything exploded into a flurry of light and sound. I clamped my eyes shut against the chaos, desperately hoping to hold on to something familiar. Something to keep me tethered in this storm of shadows. When the chaos subsided, I found myself sprawled on the ground, breathless. The warm glow that had initially surrounded the altar flickered and finally settled into a soft, steady light. It illuminated the clearing, revealing the figures dancing once more. But this time, they seemed brighter, less burdened by shadows. I swallowed hard, absorbing the shift in energy. I raised my head slowly, squinting against the glow. The figures moved in fluid harmony, weaving a story I could barely comprehend. As I stood up, my heart still racing, I felt a peculiar sense of belonging, as if I had stumbled upon something ancient yet profoundly personal. Protect the heart, echoed the voice from before. I took a step forward and placed my hand against the cold stone once more. An electric surge coursed through me, intertwining with the pulsing light that enveloped the altar. It felt like I was interacting with something far greater than myself, a history that was both mine and not mine. The figures then began to shift, drawing closer to me as their movements became more synchronized. I realized they were portraying a life, moments locked away behind the veil of time. Laughter and sorrow, joy and fear, spun together in a beautiful dance. They represented the memories the child had referred to, memories lost somewhere along the path of life, perhaps tied to my own past. A single figure broke free from the rest, distinct yet familiar. My breath hitched, it was the child from the attic. You found it, they whispered, glowing brighter. Now you must choose. What choice? I asked, my voice trembling. When the darkness had enveloped me before, I felt like I had been drowning in fear. I didn't know what option I had left. I want to remember. The child smiled, serene yet filled with layers of unspoken knowledge. You must confront the shadows. Only then can you break the curse. Before I could respond, the clearing erupted in sound, the figures converging, the ground trembling beneath my feet again. The shadow emerged from the edges of the grove, swirling in dark, pulling in remnants of the night around it. You cannot protect what is already lost. It boomed. I felt the fear clawing at me once more, but with the child's gaze anchoring me, I pushed past it. I had seen enough to understand the shadow was an echo of every fear I had harbored, every regret I had avoided. It fed on that dread, coiling around me as I stood tethered to the altar. I won't let you control me. I shouted defiantly. The ground shook, the light pulsing wildly as the shadow rushed toward me. I closed my eyes and steadied my breath. I choose to remember, I whispered. A rush of warmth enveloped me, and suddenly, memories crashed over me like waves. A childhood filled with joy, followed by loss, moments of laughter intertwined with heartache. The shadows recoiled, the figures in the clearing organizing themselves beside me, each mirroring the feeling I had just embraced. Remember. They chimed in unison, their voices a soothing balm against the shadow-esque growl. Face it. With renewed vigor, I opened my eyes. The shadow loomed closer, thick and horrifying, but I felt empowered. It could not take the warmth of my memories. The child stepped forward again. Connect with us. They urged. In that instant, I understood. I reached out to the light, allowing it to course through me, wrapping me in warmth. I scattered my fears like grains of sand before the tide. The darkness surged but felt less daunting than before. Then silence fell. The shadow shrieked but gradually diminished, its essence pulled into the light, dissipating into thin air. I stood, wondering if I was truly free or if this was merely a momentary reprieve in a long battle. As the clearing returned to its tranquil state, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The figures danced around me in celebration, their joy palpable. But beyond them, the forest held its breath, still holding secrets yet unrevealed, and while I left the grove, stepping back toward the depths of the forest, a lingering sense of unease remained. Had I truly released the shadow-esque grip? Or merely postponed the reckoning? Behind me, a whisper echoed in the trees, "Your choice awaits." I didn't have the answers then, but I carried with me the knowledge that there were paths untraveled, and I would someday find my way back to understand them fully. I moved forward, knowing the journey wasn't over yet, that there was still more to discover in this realm of memories and shadows.